Hello everybody. Hope you all are doing well out there. We're gonna do a little bit of a guitar workshop this evening. And I'd like to start with a song. Here's a little bit of the Beatles. One of my favorite songs to play, Yesterday by the Beatles, of course. So welcome everybody, hope you all are doing well out there. This is a Tuesday evening guitar workshop that I wanted to do, and this is in celebration of my fingerstyle guitar, complete fingerstyle guitar courses being 89% off for the next 4 days. So click the link in the description, joerobinson.com/courses, if you would like to enroll. But for the next, 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to talk about fingerstyle guitar playing. So I get a lot of questions about how to approach fingerstyle guitar because it's a bit of a different animal than playing lead guitar or electric guitar, or it's a bit of a different animal than strumming. Fingerstyle guitar is all about using the right hand fingers to play beautiful rolls and melodies. And the way I like to approach it is playing a bass part and a melody part together. And so this definitely comes from the school of Chet Atkins and Merle Travis, Jerry Reed, people like that, as well as a lot of the great jazz musicians like Joe Pass. People who would do walking bass lines at the same time as melodies. And if I take a song like Freight Train, which was written by Elizabeth Cotten, and I play it kind of like this. One more time. quite a few things going on there. We have this bass pattern, played with the thumb, on the right hand that is. And so you get this nice groove, kind of sounds like a ragtime piano. You can play a lot of great swing tunes like this. And you move that through the chord changes. And the melody, of course, is so I'm using the middle finger and the ring finger, mostly, in this song to play the melody on the top strings. And so we can kind of break it all down and take it one bite-sized chunk at a time, practice it a lot, and eventually we can play the melody and the bass line together like this. So there we go. So if anyone has any questions about fingerstyle guitar playing, now is the time to ask. I'm monitoring the chat here, and I'm going to enjoy kind of just playing some songs and talking about all things fingerstyle with you all. I see a good question there from Frederick. Why do you use a capo for fingerstyle? He says the key should not matter for an instrumental when you play by yourself. So you're assuming that the only reason to use a capo is if you're working with a singer or you want to change the key to singing. Well, a capo can get a lot of really beautiful sounds. I mean, the guitar sounds different when you put the capo on. That sounds different than one doesn't sound better than the other, but it's just a bit of a different way to get some different sounds out of the guitar. And the thing with the capo is it allows you to play a lot of open strings that are not possible that if you just kind of transpose the song. Like if I was to play Freight Train, let's see if I can do this in D. It's possible, but it doesn't have the same beautiful ringing out overtones as if you're playing in an open position with those open strings ringing out. So, a lot of people from the rock and roll school kind of sneer at the use of a capo, and they say, "Oh, that's for them hippie guitar players." I've heard that before. But the capo can really get you a lot of beautiful, beautiful sounds. So there you go. Robert says, "Feeling on thumb pick, I find it uncomfortable." Everybody finds their thumb pick uncomfortable when they first start to use it, and you definitely don't need to play with a thumb pick to play fingerstyle. In fact, the first song I played yesterday, I just used my bare thumb and my fingers, and I don't use fingernails either. So I like the sound of the flesh on a steel string guitar. I think it has a really nice warm sound. But when I use a thumb pick, you can get a little more articulation in the bass notes. So if I was to play a song like Cannonball Rag with a thumb pick, it sounds like this. Hear that nice articulate bass. If I was to take the thumb pick off, it would sound like this. So it still sounds good, but it kind of sounds a little warmer, just a little less punchy, and you just don't get the same clarity on those bass notes. So I really love playing with a thumb pick, and I think it's a great thing to be able to do. You know, it's good to be able to decide whether you want to use a thumb pick or whether you want to use the bare flesh of your thumb. It's also great to be able to play the song's hybrid picking style. So if I was to play Freight Train again, so I'm using a straight pick there, and I'm playing the bass with a straight pick, and then I'm using my middle and ring finger to play the melody up top. So it's good to be able to do that too, because sometimes you find yourself wanting to do a little finger picking when you're playing with a straight pick. So that's a little bit on picks. I use a Dunlop medium pick, and I find it fits my thumb well. You've got to experiment a little bit to find a pick that works for your thumb. Some people have a bigger thumb and they need a Dunlop large, and there are some other brands that work well also, but I've been using the Dunlop medium for, you know, pretty much since day one. So close to 20 years now I've been using that pick, and everyone fits just a little bit differently. Like this one is a little bit looser than this one. They are both Dunlop mediums, but you know, there's just a little bit of variety when you get a pack. Everyone fits a little bit different, which is, you know, it's nice because the weather changes. Sometimes you have more salt and less salt, and your thumb kind of expands a little. So there you go. Sander says, what type of strings do you use? I use Ernie Ball strings. These are Ernie Ball Paradigm, and the gauge is 12 to 54, but I replaced the high E with a 14 just because I like a little more volume on the high E string. And people say, wow, it's so heavy, you use a 14 on top. Well, if you were to take a set of 13 to 56, which is a medium gauge acoustic guitar string, that would be much heavier overall than this set. So this is just a set of lights, 12 to 54, with a heavier E string added, just because I like that one string to be a little bit heavier. So there you go. So anyone that's just tuning in, my fingerstyle guitar courses that have been really, really amazingly popular. We've had so many people getting these courses and such amazing reviews. The advanced course has a 4.9 rating, which is kind of unheard of within Udemy. And those courses are 89% off for the next 4 days. So jump in now while it's at that price. It's going to be about $10 US. You know, it varies depending on which country you're in, but about that price. And just click the link in the description, joerobinson.com/courses, to get the links to secure that 89% discount. So there's 3 courses. There's fingerstyle guitar beginner, and that's for someone who has never played fingerstyle guitar before. You might be somewhat familiar with guitar in general, but if you've never played fingerstyle, that course is perfect. But if you are totally new to guitar, you've never played guitar before, this course will also be appropriate because we go through all the basic chords and all the fundamentals. There's about 7 hours worth of material in there. It's all step by step. You know, it's really easy to get through, and the videos are short. They're short and sweet and to the point, so you can make a lot of progress. You know, just tuning in a little bit each day. I think you'll learn a lot, and you'll have a efficient time learning fingerstyle guitar. The intermediate course is for people who have some experience playing, basic fingerstyle guitar. Like if you can play a song like "Tears in Heaven" by Eric Clapton. Or if you can play Blackbird by the Beatles, something like that, then the intermediate course is a good one to jump into. If you are an advanced guitar player, which I have a lot of people that send me videos and I connect with online who are quite advanced players. The advanced course is the one to really take a look at if you are out playing gigs and you're a gigging, recording, fingerstyle guitarist. And if you're not and you just want to kind of watch the videos to soak it in, I think you'll find it entertaining and interesting as well. So check out those courses while they're on sale, joerobinson.com/courses. All right, I'm going to read some questions now. What's the best capo for you? Asked Daniel. That's a good question. So right now I have the G7th capo, and that's just a handy capo that I have lying around the studio. It's a good option, but the ones I use the most, which I don't have right in front of me, is just a shub capo. It's just the basic shub capo, and those are especially good if you're playing electric guitar and you want to do some bending and things. I found that there aren't many capos that you can bend and the strings won't get all out of place. So I use a shub mostly. You can adjust. There's a little screw on the back so you can adjust it so it's just enough pressure, so that you're not just like with a Kaiser, you kind of have a lot of pressure on the strings and it can bend them sharp sometimes. So I use a shub, and the way to use a capo is you put it on and you get it so it's just, it's enough to not have any buzz on the strings. And then what you do is you just put your palm and just push the strings against the guitar, and kind of takes all the slack out. And then you can double check tuning again. It's usually pretty close. And typically I won't have too many tuning problems when using a capo like that. So you put it on, and you push the strings against the fretboard to get all the slack out. So I'll play a little bit of Doc's guitar now. So that's a tune by the great Doc Watson. He's one of my favorite guitarists of all time. And that song is a wonderful one because it's much easier to play than it sounds. So it's based around this really repetitive rolling pattern. And if we take this bass pattern, which is kind of like the foundation of fingerstyle guitar in terms of folk, blues, Travis picking they call it. Really great to be able to play this pattern comfortably. And the way you do it is with a thumb. You go 5, 4, 6, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4. And most of you will look at that and say, I can do that. It's just 4 notes. And that's true. Most of you will have no problem doing that. But it does take a lot of repetition to get just really comfortable with it. And with Doc's guitar, we just add 2 extra notes. So it's just... And then we move through some chords. Just going C, A minor, F, G. And you speed it up. go. That's a great song to learn. You know, one of the most important ways to develop our technique as fingerstyle guitar players is learning songs. So learning great songs. And fortunately, there's a lot of wonderful arrangements out there for us to learn. And that is a good example of one, Dot's guitar. So Frederick has another question. I don't mean to skip over other questions. Frederick just has some good questions. Your right hand moves a lot from left to right. How do you decide where to play? He says we models have to be careful when changing anything. Well, that's a really good question because I'm not really consciously thinking of where my right hand is going, but I've just gotten used to, if I want a brighter sound, I come back to the bridge, and if I want a warmer sound, I come up to the more closer to the neck. And so generally, if I'm going to let the bass notes feature for a few beats, like there, if I do them up near the neck, it doesn't have the same impact. And with the melody strings, generally I want them to be a little warmer. It's pretty rare that I'll get a really bright sound on the melody strings. So, you know, one of my favorite guitarists is Steve Morse, and this might surprise some of you in terms of, you know, Steve's approach to playing electric guitar has influenced the way I play acoustic guitar. Steve has this, you know, pickup system in his guitar, and his basic rule is when he's playing low, he'll use the bridge pickup, and then when he goes up high, he'll flip and play the neck pickup. So he gets nice, bright, lower strings, and then nice, warm, higher strings. And so that's kind of the way I think about the instrument too. I'm always trying to get the melody notes to be nice and warm, and the bass notes to be kind of bright and clear, and it's really a feel thing. So it takes a while to get comfortable with those nuances. I think one of the most important things to do when we're practicing or playing or recording, whatever we're doing, is just to really listen to the sound we're making, because that's one of the most important kind of divides to bridge, is what you think you sound like and what you really sound like. And if you're anything like me, for a long time I thought I sounded better than I did. I thought I played with really good timing and tuning, and it took a recording studio experience to get in front of the mic and play, and then listen back and be like, whoa, I don't sound anywhere near as good as I thought I did. So it was a bit of a reality check when I went into the studio for the first time. So it's really great to record ourselves, and, you know, just a smartphone these days can record really good audio, and you can use voice memos or whatever, you know, recording app you want, and just record yourself playing a song and listen back. Listen to your timing, listen to the tone you're getting, and you don't need a, you know, fancy microphone or anything to hear the tone, because that's really the goal, is to pull a beautiful sound out of the instrument. Just got your beginning and intermediate courses. I'm really looking forward to them, says Efren. That's wonderful. Thank you. Hope you enjoy them. And you can message me through the courses. I go on there, you know, every few days and try to keep up with questions and comments people have. I try to be as present as possible. There's 3 courses for anyone that's just tuning in. There's beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and they're all 89% off for the next 4 days only. So jump in now if you're considering learning fingerstyle guitar from me. Bonnie says, I have all 3 courses and they are amazing. I'm intermediate now. They are so motivating and inspiring. Wonderful teacher. Thank you so much, Bonnie. That really makes me happy, because that's my goal, is to just share music. Music is such a wonderful gift that we all have access to. And I've been really inspired by so many great people, and it's a great honor to be able to share this music with more people. David says, I just signed up for the intermediate course. Wonderful. Kathy says, just signed up for beginner. All right. Chris says, Joe sounds great. Do you play Dizzy Fingers by Chet? I don't play Dizzy Fingers. That's a great idea to learn that song. I'll play a little more Chet. Here's a little bit of Mr. Sandman. There we go. I see a great question from Steve. Is it possible to over-practice? So that's a very, very good question. You know, for people who are beginner or intermediate players, I really, really believe that if you can get into a routine of playing for, you know, about 30 minutes a day, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour if you want, even just 15 minutes, but somewhere in that window, if you can just kind of get into a daily habit of doing that a little bit, you know, in the morning or evening, whenever you have time, you will be amazed at how much progress you make. With regard to over-practicing, yes, I think you can over-practice. If when you're practicing, you experience any pain, you know, in your arms or your wrists or anything like that, it's time to stop. I always recommend stretching before practicing, and I have all the stretching exercises in the courses, but basically stretching the wrists and really trying to be as relaxed as possible when we're practicing. It is normal for the tips of the fingers to get a little bit sore. So that's normal because we're playing steel strings or nylon strings if you're playing nylon strings with, you know, the soft tips of our fingers, and it's normal for them to get a little bit tender. But that'll go away, you know, as you get used to it. I really don't have very much finger pain anymore, unless I'm playing for hours and hours and hours and hours, and they'll get a little bit sore, but not a big issue. So if you're tense and anything's hurting, that's when you stop and you stretch and you really kind of try to monitor your technique. And you know, I when I was younger, I used to challenge myself to practice like 8 to 10 hours a day. I would read about Steve Vai, and in his Berkeley days, he had this 8-hour a day practice routine, and I used to try to do that, you know, when I was a teenager and everything. And I had a good time doing that, honestly, and some fond memories of just shredding all day. And I used to play all the time anyway, even if it wasn't like a formal practice session. But yeah, I don't really think that's necessary or very effective, truthfully. I think, you know, if you can get in, if you're a really serious player and you can get in 3 to 4 hours in a day, then I think that's a really, really good amount. I think anything more than that, you kind of get into diminished returns. It's more important to be kind of intentional about what we practice and how we practice, and, you know, to just love playing and have fun playing. So sometimes I'll meet, you know, 18, 19-year-old guitarists who you can just see how obsessed they are, and they're practicing all the time, and they'll ask me for advice, and my advice will usually be like, take on a few students and teach for a while, because when you teach, you learn so much about the instrument, and you kind of learn to take it a step back and kind of approach things from the ground up a little bit. Sometimes when teaching, the teacher learns the most, out of anybody. So, I think generally speaking, we don't need to practice for crazy hours, although I really believe the secret to, mastering an instrument, and mastering is a funny word because we never really totally master it. It's always, a work in progress, but it's really just showing up consistently and working, just trying to make steady progress, staying in the sweet spot of just being a little bit out of your comfort zone so you're learning something new, but not too far out so you feel like a fish out of water. And, finding other people to learn from, finding other people to jam with, finding new songs that are a little bit outside of your comfort zone, and just keep growing and keep learning and see it as just something that you include in your lifestyle. That's the way I think about it. I talked to my mom on FaceTime. She's in Australia, and she's playing ukulele. She plays a variety of instruments, piano and drums and different things, but she's really into the ukulele lately. And I'll talk to her, and she's like, "Oh, Joe, I've been learning this great song on the ukulele, and I practice for 30 minutes in the morning, and I have a great time doing it." And she has a little ukulele group that she plays with, and it just brings her so much happiness. And that's what I think music's all about. So that's kind of where I come from when it comes to practicing or anything like that. Tadpole says, I love that name, Tadpole. Have you ever played Spanish or flamenco? I have never played Spanish or flamenco or classical guitar, really. So I come from the school of, blues and jazz and folk, rock and roll, and bluegrass, and gypsy swing, all that. But I love flamenco guitar. I've had the honor to perform with two of the great flamenco guitarists, Paco de Lucia. I opened for Aldi Meola and Paco de Lucia in Germany years ago. That was just one of the coolest gigs ever. And I also got to open and play with Paco Pena in Sydney at the Sydney Guitar Festival about 4 years ago now. So there you go. Okay, we got some good questions here. Dave Newberry asks, related to practicing, do you ever find songs that even after a lot of practice you still struggle with, and how do you overcome that barrier? That's a really good question. If you're working on a song and you just feel like you're getting nowhere, if you really are just struggling with it, then what I would do and what I would recommend is just putting it aside and working on something different and coming back to it, in a week or a few days. It's kind of like if you learn something that's really challenging, that can be a great way to make the other songs you're learning seem easier. I know that sounds kind of contrived, but it's good to get out of your comfort zone a little bit, but sometimes the function of that can be to make the other songs you're learning, just seem comparatively easier. I always find that when I learn a little bit of jazz, I can apply it to improvising in a more blues or rock and roll context, and I find that it just gives me a lot of ideas and options. And with fingerstyle pieces, I mean, there are some really challenging pieces out there, and a lot of people will send me messages and saying, I'm learning Struttin' by Jerry Reed, which is one of the hardest songs ever written for fingerstyle guitar, I think. And they'll say, I'm really struggling with it, and I say, no wonder. That is such a difficult song to play, and it's the kind of song that can take a lot of years to work up to. That being said, it's great to kind of get a feel for it and learn what it is, but I'm not a fan of getting just super caught up on one thing and letting it frustrate you and stopping you from making progress. So that's the way I approach it. It's kind of like reading a book. If you start reading a book and you just get so bored of it and you're just not into it, then I think it's worth reading something else rather than just persevering through something that you're just not really vibing with. So that's my 2 cents. I'm going to try to move through these questions a little faster because we're getting a lot of them. Carl says, when playing through chord changes, are you thinking about playing the particular chord notes respective to the chord only, or are you thinking about playing the chord notes in context of the key center? That's a good question. I'm really thinking in context of the key center. So, for example, if we have a song like Blue Moon, which goes from C, A minor, D minor to G, and if I was to play a little solo, so what I'm really thinking there is C major, and we're going from the 1 chord to the 6 minor. And so when I play that A minor chord, I think of all these notes I have, which are the C major scale. And then when we go to the D minor chord, I think of all the notes we have, which is also the C major scale, but you could call that the D Dorian mode. And then when we go to the G chord, I'm thinking, well, we can play this kind of C major over that. It becomes the G Mixolydian. But I can also play some kind of altered notes. All kind of resolving to that key center of C. And of course, if it's a more complicated song with moving key centers and that kind of thing, it's a bit different. I don't play a lot of that music though. So generally, it's kind of always relates back to the key of the song, and I'm just trying to move through the chord changes and play some nice melodies. Honestly, I'm trying not to think too much. I'm trying to really just play melodic, tasty music. That's kind of the things that I like. Paolo says, how do you improve your left hand strength and dexterity? That is a great question, because the left hand is so important when playing fingerstyle guitar. We're asking a lot of it to play, chords and bass lines and melodies and all kinds of things. So this is my favorite exercise for working on the left hand. I do a little hammer on like that and really try to stay relaxed. And you can hear that. I'm just hammering on with the left hand only. And I'll do that for about 45 seconds. You can start off at 30 seconds, 45, a minute even. And then you switch fingers. And you really try to stay relaxed, because you will try to tense up your arm. And most people will be able to do that fairly well. But then when we go to the pinky, that's very difficult for just about everybody who hasn't done it. And even if I haven't played for a week, like I've just moved from my fiance down from Canada to Nashville, and I was driving at 2,000 kilometers. And you can feel it. You feel your kind of muscles are just a bit out of shape. So when I say the muscles, we're just trying to isolate the very fine musculature needed to fret the notes. So we don't want any extra muscles involved. We want to stay as relaxed as possible, but we want to train the hands to play those legato exercises nice and clean and clear. So that's probably my favorite left hand exercise. That's the one I go to when I feel like my left hand is struggling a little bit. And I teach these in all the courses. And the courses, of course, are 89% off for the next 4 days. I've mentioned that already, but for anyone that's just tuning in, this is a Q&A and guitar lesson, guitar workshop. And to kind of celebrate my fingerstyle guitar series being on sale for the next 4 days, 89% off. If you're considering jumping in, now's the time to do it. It's about $10 US per course. And the beginner course is for someone who is brand new to fingerstyle guitar or brand new to guitar. So even if you can play, electric guitar or strum a little bit, if you haven't really played much fingerstyle guitar and you want a step-by-step method of working through it, then the beginner course is a good place to start. The intermediate course is for people who can already play a little bit of fingerstyle guitar but want kind of, a few more challenging songs and exercises and ideas, and a little bit of a deeper dive into the style. And then the advanced course is for people who, perform on stage and are pretty serious about it. That being said, if you just want to pick up the advanced course to watch the videos, I try to make the videos short and sweet and to the point, and I don't want to waste anybody's time. I want to give you the information, and most of all, inspire you and encourage you to work on your guitar playing, because it's just such a wonderful gift, the gift of music, and I love sharing it with people, and I love helping other people enjoy it. So there we go. I'm going to scroll back through a couple of these questions. Jacob says, what tips do you have on getting a clear boomchick? It's a good question. So by the boomchick, he's talking about this sound. That sounds easy, it's just 4 notes, but it's difficult to get it to feel right. So what I would suggest is taking a metronome, and I have a metronome right here in front of me, and let's just turn it on there. It's so loud, sorry. So that's at 98 right now. Let's slow it down. Let's go to 72. You might go. With the left hand, I'm pulsing on the strings just a little bit. Without that, it sounds like this. With the pulsing, it's very subtle. You can add a string grab. Let's move to an E chord. Back to A minor. Anyway, it went off it a little bit there. I'm reading the comments. But yeah, just working on the groove of the notes and getting them to be just nice and even and smooth. That's where I think the clarity comes from, and the control. Playing at nice slow tempos, playing at fast tempos, and everywhere in between. I find that the easiest tempos are the slow and the fast ones, but when you get kind of in the middle, it can become tricky, and that's kind of where a lot of songs fit into that kind of mid-tempo range. So if you slow it way down, it is difficult to play slow, but usually you can kind of do it, and then you get really fast, and you can kind of at least. I can usually fumble my way through it, but then when you slow it down to the sweet spot, it's worth really practicing a range of tempos, and a metronome is just such a great tool for that. So with the boomchick, there is some muting going on with the right hand. If there's no muting, it sounds like this. It just sounds a little bit uncontrolled. If there's too much muting, sounds like that. There's no notes. So you want just that sweet spot, and it takes a while to find that. And I wouldn't get too worried if it doesn't sound exactly like a recording the first time you do it. The important thing is to stay relaxed, get used to playing the patterns, and to learn the songs, and just chip away at it a little bit each day, and just keep working on the groove and the sound and the tone, and you'll get there. So those are a few tips. 80 asks, can every strumming song be fingerstyled? Well, some songs are more suitable for fingerstyle than others, but generally speaking, yeah, I think so. And you can even kind of strum with your fingers. That's kind of a bit of a hybrid. So, Drew asked, "Hello Joe, can you talk about the book Peak and how it helped you?" Just started reading this. Peaked by Anders Ericsson and Robert Poole, I believe, is just a wonderful, wonderful book that any musician, I believe, will benefit from reading. Anders Ericsson was the one that did the research that led to the 10,000 hour idea, which was popularized in the Malcolm Gladwell book Outliers. And most people will be familiar with that idea. You know, it takes 10,000 hours to reach mastery, you know, in any domain. That's kind of the idea that Malcolm Gladwell put forward. It's not exactly what Anders Ericsson discovered in his research, because how you practice really, really matters. So in Anders Ericsson's research, and he passed away last year, I believe. He was a wonderful researcher on performance, and he really focused on musicians and did a lot of studies on you know, what it takes to become a great musician or a great chess player. You know, he did other domains as well, but he really emphasized the importance of deliberate practice. So deliberate practice is not necessarily just playing stuff you already know. It's not comfortable practice. It's really being focused and intentional about what we're practicing, and that is the way that we accelerate our growth on the instrument. I think it's also important to just play and not worry too much about what's going on, just have fun playing. But, you know, if we set aside a little bit of time in our practice session, and I love to keep a practice journal, for deliberate practice and mapping out what we want to practice, you know, tightening up our weak spots. Maybe it's timing, maybe it's tuning, maybe it's repertoire, and really just being intentional. That's what, you know, the great people do. I've never met anyone that practices more than Tommy Emmanuel, or that is more intentional about the way he plays. And, you know, he'll tell you, he'll say, "Oh, I've never kept a practice journal or anything." Like I'm a nerd like that, I guess. But I've seen him before a show, and he'll just be thinking about the songs he's going to play on the show. He'll think about the song he's going to open with, think about any new songs he wants to play, and he'll be just backstage or at soundcheck just playing those over and over again, working with his metronome, just kind of, I can see him visualizing him playing that song, and he's very intentional about what he's working on and what he's practicing. And it's very inspiring because, you know, he just plays it on such a high level. And I believe that's why, is because he just really gives it his all. So Peak by Anders Ericsson is a wonderful, wonderful book. I should mention, by the way, that I have a Christmas album coming out this year. So I'm really excited about my Christmas album. It's 13 fingerstyle guitar songs, and they're all, you know, pretty meticulously arranged fingerstyle guitar Christmas classics. I had a video, Jingle Bell Rock, that kind of got a lot of views last year, 1 million views on Facebook. And so I thought, well, I'll make a whole album of these Christmas songs. So songs like Let It Snow, Winter Wonderland, Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, you know, all the classics. And the album is coming out December 3rd, and you can pre-order it now. And there's a special pre-order campaign in which you can have me sign it with a personal message. So this is available for the pre-sale only. So if you go to my website, joerobinson.com/Christmas, you can pre-order the Christmas album, and you can write, "For, you know, Sam, keep up your guitar playing." I'll write that, and you can purchase that on my website now. So Christmas au Chalet, it's called. I recorded it in a solar-powered cabin up in Quebec. So here we go. Davey says, "I can't find an Ernie Ball Paradigm 0.14 to replace my E string. Where do you get yours?" It's a good question. They're difficult to find sometimes. I just use a standard Ernie Ball 0.14 string. You know, you can get them at your local music store. Most music stores carry single strings. Most of them will be a little bit annoyed if you're like me and you go in there and buy all of their .14 gauge. If you go to a music store out there and they say, "No, we have every other gauge except that one," you know I've been there. But I just use any regular steel string, 0.14. It works just fine. And I don't think it's a problem if it's a slightly different brand, you know, Martin or Diodario. If it's that gauge, I can make it work. And you might try a 13. I think I might go down to a 13 at one point. Capo has a really good point here. One thing I recommend if you are getting into fingerstyle is have your guitar set up properly. If you don't know how to do it yourself, pay a good luthier to do it. Well worth the investment. I totally agree. When you buy a new guitar is set up to be shipped all over the place, and everyone has a bit of a different approach on the instrument. Some people will be strumming, and if you're strumming, you need the action to be a little bit higher than if you're playing delicate fingerstyle pieces, especially if you're playing advanced fingerstyle pieces. So you want the left hand to have a pretty easy time fretting the notes. So you want the strings pretty close to the fretboard. And so that usually involves cutting the nut down a little bit and getting the bridge to be such that the neck is straight, the nut is right, and the bridge. It's kind of just this balancing act that I don't set up my own guitars. I'm not, I don't have the files and all that. So finding a good luthier is not that difficult to do. Most local music stores will have someone that can do a basic setup on an acoustic guitar, and I highly recommend, having that done. It's usually not particularly expensive, and you're just paying someone for their time. So, find someone who you like and you trust, and talk to them. Explain that you're playing fingerstyle guitar. Show them your instrument, and 9 times out of 10 they'll know exactly what to do, and they'll do a nice setup. It's really worth it, especially if you're struggling with your guitar. That being said, if you want to try to get your guitar to be a bit easy to play and you don't have access to a luthier right now, you can try tuning down to E flat, or you can try practicing on an electric guitar. Electric guitars have lighter strings and are generally easier to play. So those are a few ideas of just getting your guitar to be as easy as possible to play. I hope you guys don't feel I'm doing too much talking. Usually during live streams, I just play song after song, and this Saturday I'll be doing a full live stream, which is live from home number 51, I think. So I'm just going to keep reading these questions. Joe Rob, what guitar are you using right now? Thanks a lot. This is a Maton guitar. This is my JR Personal guitar. So this is made in the custom shop by Andy Allen, and I've had this guitar for about 10 years now. 2011 it was made, and so this has been my main instrument for a good while now. I had a recording session in Nashville today, and it has fresh strings on it, so that's why I'm playing it today. I've been playing my new JR Signature guitar, which is made on the production line at Maton, and it's exactly the same as the guitar that people can buy, and that's the guitar I used on the Christmas album. So I think if you want to hear that guitar demoed, keep an ear out for the Christmas album. But I love playing these Maton guitars. They're really great. Okay, lots of questions to keep up with. Do you have a suggested learning sequence if one combines your Udemy and TrueFire content? That's a good question. So the TrueFire channel I have is called Guitar Synergy, and it is a archive of a lot of different videos. There's over 600 videos there, and it kind of covers everything from electric guitar to a lot of song tutorials and improvising, behind the scenes footage about how I arrange with Guitar Pro. There's all kinds of videos, and there's a lot of tab. I mean, it's just a pretty massive archive of those things. So that's kind of a world of its own. And I also do a monthly Zoom lesson with anyone who wants to tune in, and it's pretty small and intimate. Like it's been a really nice thing. And the channel is $15 a month. You can cancel anytime. You can just sign up for 1 month and check it out if you want. So that's the Guitar Synergy channel. The Udemy courses, you purchase it once, especially now it's 89% off. It's $10, and you have lifetime access to it. And those are very granular fingerstyle guitar lessons, exercises, and songs. So it's really step-by-step fingerstyle guitar from the very beginning right to, all the way up to advanced ideas. So if you're interested in fingerstyle guitar specifically, that's the way to go. If you're interested in kind of learning a lot of songs and a more, bigger picture idea, check out the channel. So there we go. Chuck Thompson says, just saying hello. I've been here since the start. Always appreciate what you bring. I really appreciate that, Chuck. Thank you. It's amazing to me that I can go live and people out there are watching and are listening. It's an amazing time. Efren has a good question. What are your recommendations to improve on improv and playing with other musicians? So I posted a video about improvising on my YouTube channel a couple days ago. Last Saturday it was. There's a lot of ways we can practice improvising, and it is really important to jam with other people and to work with other people, because that's just a great listening experience. Because when you sit down with a drummer, you have to listen to their groove, and you have to, kind of play something that complements them. If you're working with a singer or keyboard player, it's really this situation where you're trying to listen to everybody and really play something that works as an ensemble. So that's what playing in a group is about. Improvising can be practiced, with a backing track. There's lots of different ways to practice using different scales, practicing this way on the neck, as well as, in different positions, just getting really comfortable with the fretboard. I love to practice, doing things like playing a scale and taking one note out, playing on two strings. So I might play on the high E and the G string if I take the G minor pentatonic scale. That's just playing on two strings. And if I was to play the G minor pentatonic scale, and I was to take out, let's say, the fourth. Let's say I was to play the blues scale and remove the fifth. That's a cool sound. And I'll do that with more advanced scales like the melodic minor. You can kind of really, challenge yourself in a million different ways. So check out my video on improvising that I posted on YouTube the other day, because there's about 20 different ways you can practice improvising. So that's what I'd recommend. Hi Joe, Tommy Emmanuel approach of practice is learning as many songs as possible, the technique and licks he learns within the songs. What are your thoughts on that approach? That's exactly what I said earlier on. When developing our technique as fingerstyle guitarists, the best thing we can do is learn some good songs and good arrangements. So that'll be the foundation. I think learning the songs is really the ultimate goal. When you're first starting out with fingerstyle, you've really got to take it a bite-sized chunk at a time, literally like a couple notes. So if you're learning Windy and Warm, you might take it like this. Play that over and over and over and over and over again. So in order to learn that song, we got to kind of break it down into these tiny little exercises and tiny little things. So there's a lot of that involved in learning a song. And my left hand exercises, I really think that they are helpful and worth checking out, as well as learning some different patterns, different chords, and there's many different ways we can get more fuel to put in our songs, but learning songs is ultimately the most helpful thing. David says, my problem is I start at one tempo and I end up about twice as fast. You and I have that same problem. I love to speed things up. I don't usually have a problem with slowing down, and that's a common thing for a solo guitarist to feel, because when when we're getting used to, keeping the groove going ourselves, it takes a while to get comfortable with it because, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different notes. We're asking a lot of our hands, but if we work with a metronome and just kind of be intentional about our timing, about our groove, we can improve it. But it's difficult. There we go. Stan from Melbourne says, your signature JR guitar uses a different wood for the back and sides. Can you share your thinking for choice a different wood than typically Maton guitar? Okay, so the question is for the tone woods of my signature guitar. So most Maton guitars are made with Queensland maple. That's the most common wood. They also use blackwood, and those are both beautiful timbers. This is Tasmanian myrtle, which is a really unique tone wood, and it has a beautiful mid-range. I think the Queensland maple has more of a softer sound, and this has a bit of a harder, kind of punchier sound. And it's definitely a big part of the tone of these guitars. And I actually didn't know it was made with this wood until Andy Allen, who's the custom shop Maton builder, who's a genius. He, built me a guitar. This is years ago when I was, I was about 17, 18, and I was playing a lot of fingerstyle gigs, and I talked to Maton about building me a custom guitar, and they built me one and sent it to me, and I loved it. And I talked to Andy, and he said, yeah, I use this new wood, Tasmanian myrtle. It's pretty easy to source, and it really has a great sound, and it's just become a big part of my sound and my approach. So this is the guitar that the JR signature production line guitar was based on. There we go. Okay, a few more questions. Carl says, outside of your passion for progressing as virtuoso, what motivates you to wake up at 4 a.m. to practice? Well, truthfully, I love waking up early because that's when I feel the most, the least distracted, the most able to focus. And I'm just a morning person. I grew up on a farm, and it was like you didn't sleep in past the sun coming up because you had chickens going crazy and sheep making noises, and I mean it's just a madhouse at that point. So I'm just used to waking up early, and that really works for me. And I really resonate with a lot of people who will get up at 4 a.m. and kind of work in the early hours. I've just always been a morning person like that. Some people are night owls, and you might prefer practicing in the evening. In the evening, I like to read and just relax, and I just find I can't be as intentional or focused, so I have kind of just more willpower reserves in the morning. So that's why. So it's a bit of a practical reason, but I've always been interested in getting as good as I can at this thing because, I don't really have a backup plan. This is what I do. This is who I am. And the first time I got onto a stage to perform and I realized how much I loved it, I was like, okay, I'm going to get as good as I can at this thing because, I come from the bush. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and I was like, if I want anyone to pay attention to me, I got to be really great. So there we go. That's kind of what happened. What food would you recommend for a finger picker? All right, I'm being asked dietary advice. Well, I have a pretty strong opinion on food. When I first came to the US, I was 18. I moved over here alone, and I would just eat whatever I could find. I grew up on a farm in Australia, and we basically ate fresh food, our own meat, and pretty healthy, normal food there. But when I came here, it was like fast food everywhere. It was hard to find real food, and I had all kinds of health problems, problems in my joints, inflammation, rashes. Like I'd got colds all the time. So basically, I don't eat processed food. So I don't eat anything or cook anything with ingredients. So that's just what works for me. Everyone's going to be different. So Squirrely Dave Carter says, I'm having trouble finding your Synergy channel on TrueFire. Can you leave a link? The best link to access all my courses is joerobinson.com/courses. So I made a page where they're all listed there. And the link to the Guitar Synergy channel is there, as well as to Joe's 12, which is another course I have. And the best links for the Fingerstyle series that's now on sale for 89% off. That's a big sale. It's all at joerobinson.com/courses. So that's where it is. Baba Roga says, hey Joe, can you please explain your boomchick technique? What part of your palm are you using to mute the strings, and how hard do you play with your thumb? Thank you. That's a really good question. I did kind of describe the boomchick technique earlier, but how hard do you play? That's a really important point, because when I first heard Tommy Emmanuel, I was like, how does he get that big sound? He must have just a lot of power in his hands. But when you listen to him up close, he's actually playing very delicately. And I am too. I play with a very, very light touch. So there's not a lot of, volume and attack. That being said, the notes cut through, and the notes are intentional. And, if we're playing just acoustically in a room, you can hear it. And, it's good to have good dynamic control and be able to play loud and soft. But my go-to is that's me playing very softly. And the palm is just resting on the bridge. If it's too much, it sounds like that. And if it's not enough, it sounds like that, just ringing out. So you just got to kind of experiment and get a bit of a feel for where you get a little bit of the dampening, but you also get some clarity. All right. Carl says, one guitar, electric or acoustic, to play the rest of your life. That isn't a Maiden. All right, we got some good questions now. I'd probably say a Burst Les Paul from 59. When I played that guitar, that's a $300,000 guitar, but by the way, when I played that guitar, I was like, not only did the neck feel a lot like the Maidens I play, but I was like, this is a quality instrument. They were not messing around when they built those things. So there you go. Christian says, thoughts on Mike Dawes? Mike's great. Mike and I are friends. He's a great guitar player. I can't memorize songs, especially finger-picking songs. Is there any good idea? It's difficult memorizing songs. I find the best way to do it is to practice slowly, repetitively, and it's almost to get into a kind of meditation when you're playing a song, is you're just working through it over and over again, and the goal is to have your hands remember the song. So when I'm playing a song that I've performed many times or practiced many times, my brain isn't really keeping up with all the notes and all the movements and all the coordination involved. That's way too much. All my brain is thinking is, and I'm singing the melody in my head. So we want our hands to remember the song, and that involves a lot of repetition. They say repetition is the mother of skill. And if we're getting used to playing a song, just playing it over and over and over and over again, it's pretty difficult to overestimate how much it takes to play a song. You got to just play it over and over again, and not only kind of repeating it one day, but repeating it each day for a week or two if it's a difficult song. So yeah, just chipping away at it consistently. I keep a repertoire journal. So I have a journal in which I have a list of all the songs I know how to play, and during a practice session I'll open it and I'll be like, oh, I haven't played that one in a while, and I'll kind of brush up on it. And usually if I've played a song on stage and just played a song enough, then I'll remember it. But that's how to get the songs memorized, is just slowly trying to get your hands to remember the combinations of movements. And if you're doing things like changing the fingering every time, then you're going to have problems memorizing it. So it's important to get the fingering right, and to get it so you can play it pretty much exactly the same every time, and then just work on building that into your muscle memory. So I hope that answers your question. How important is it to practice with a metronome? Because it really annoys me. Yeah, I know. It's not essential. It depends on how your timing is. Like, some people have a naturally pretty good sense of time, and I have some musician friends that actually say you don't need to practice with a metronome. Just work on your inner timing and your inner metronome. And so if you've got good timing, then more power to you. But if you're like most people, including me, and you want to speed up and slow down, then a metronome can be a great way to just get used to playing with more consistent time feel. Okay. Hey Joe, did you ever learn Tommy's arrangement of Good Old Fashioned Love Song? I did not learn that one. Could you comment about your use of left-hand thumb when playing chords, giving you more free fingers when playing other notes, says Jeffrey Peterson. Yes, so the left-hand thumb can be used to fret notes. I did speak with a lady the other day who kind of had a bit of an injury from her thumb from overstraining it. So you do have to be a bit careful, I think. But starting with an F chord, if you play an F bar chord like this, which nobody likes bar chords, so you can approach it with the thumb, playing that low F note. That's a good place to start, because not only can we do some hammer-ons and some notes on top, that would be very difficult to do within a bar chord, but it just really frees up the fingers to do a lot. And I have pretty big hands, big stretch, and you don't necessarily need big hands. There's lots of wonderful guitar players out there who have smaller hands and get around the instrument just fine. It's more about just getting comfortable with it. It feels awkward at first, and definitely you don't want to strain your hands or anything. But the whole classical idea that you should never use your left-hand thumb, I think that just doesn't apply to non-classical type approach to the guitar. All right, there's so many good questions. I'm gonna keep going a little bit. Did you find that singing helped develop your skill of playing guitar parts on autopilot? That's a good question. That's from Dale Boyle. Dale's a great singer-songwriter up there in Canada. I think every kind of little thing that I've learnt musically helps my guitar playing. So learning how to sing has helped. Playing in bands has helped my fingerstyle playing. Recording in the studio and learning how to use Pro Tools and how to be a session guitarist, that's helped. Learning how to write songs, that's helped. Singing definitely did help. I remember when I started to sing, I used to play in rock and roll bands, and I always had trouble playing and singing at the same time, and it took a long time before I could kind of do that comfortably. And learning some James Taylor songs really helped with that, because they have such great guitar parts, as well as great vocal phrasing. So anyone who's a fingerstyle guitar player out there and wants to sing a bit, learning some James Taylor songs can be a great way to just get used to playing fingerstyle and singing together, because they're such great songs. And I think it really did help me with my guitar playing, my phrasing, playing more melodically, my musicianship overall, and yeah, I think it did help me playing on autopilot. That being said, I remember when I was a teenager and I was just playing all the time, I used to go to parties with my parents, and Australians like to party a lot. That's just the culture down there. And we go to a party, and I would just have my guitar on, and I would play from 8 p.m. when we arrived at the party till 8 a.m. when everyone was still awake and passing out. There were some pretty wild parties in Australia, especially up in the bush, where you turn up to a party with 3 cases of beer for one person. That's why I don't drink. Hardly at all, that is. So, I just used to play all the time, and I'd just be kind of like the little, human robot playing guitar all the time. So I think just a lot of hours, a lot of practice, a lot of just getting comfortable with the guitar. That's kind of where I think the autopilot element came from. John says, can you talk a bit about how you think about flat picking versus thumb picking on acoustic? How much have you studied gypsy jazz and bluegrass flat picking? Love your stuff. Keep it up. Thank you, John. Yeah, the gypsy jazz approach to flat picking has really influenced me, as well as the bluegrass approach, but the bluegrass approach to a lesser extent. I just feel like I know less about that. But the way the gypsy guys... You know, the way the right hand works and their attack on the strings, it's just such a great way to get a lot of beautiful tone out of the guitar. So I've really been influenced by those people, especially people like Borrelia Green, and Yosho Stefan, who's I did a few gigs with him years ago and just blew me away. So yeah, when I play electric guitar, I'm using a flat pick a lot. I don't do a lot of flat picking on the acoustic when I'm playing solo, but I'm starting to do a little more of that. But yeah, the bluegrass and the gypsies approach to, you know, acoustic guitar, single line playing with a pick is just so wonderful. I've really learned a lot from, you know, just learning the basic gypsy jazz tunes, and I love getting to jam with those people because the gypsy jazz musicians love to jam. They'll sit around and just play for hours. That's what they do. That's the culture. It's just wonderful. Glenn says, Joe, have you studied music notation or sight reading? I'm sure you have a good understanding of theory. Thanks, Glenn. I'm not a very good sight reader. In fact, I'm quite bad at it because I just never am required to do that in my day-to-day experience. When I was in high school, I took theory grades, and I did the Trinity grade. I think I did up to grade 6 or 7, somewhere in that window. And that's kind of a classical music theory. You know, you sit in the exam, and it was a great thing to learn. I feel like I learned theory outside of the guitar. So it's like music theory is one thing, and then guitar is a whole different world. But the understanding of music theory influenced my understanding of the guitar and how it works. And I was pretty good at math in school, and there's a lot of math involved in music theory with the way a chord is built and a scale is built and how they all kind of fit together. So I kind of have a pretty good understanding of theory, and but my music notation skills are not very good. That being said, I can kind of arrange in software and transcribe relatively okay. I'm okay with rhythm, but I do it all with tab on the computer, so I don't really use the music notation side of things. How old are you, Joe? I'm 30. You can find that out on Wikipedia. Break the song down in small parts, then play them together, says Tom. Exactly. Carl says, have you played with Doyle Dykes? Yes, I have played with Doyle Dykes several times. He's great. Joel says, have you ever had RSI, repetitive strain injury problems due to playing? I've never had RSI. I did have some problems, pain in my wrist from my back, some back pain when I was a teenager, like I was 17, and that was from kind of, posture issues, and I fixed that and everything went away, and I don't have any hand pain. I think it's good to stay relatively, in shape and to stretch, before you practice. But I talked to Tommy Emanuel, and he has zero, hand problems, hand pain, anything like that. Last time I spoke with him, at least. And I find that to be really, really refreshing because, I think if you have a nice relaxed technique, then you shouldn't have any problems like that. And if you do have any pain or RSI, anything like that, it's good to take a break from playing. Maybe see a physical therapist, someone that is going to know a lot more about your body and can kind of take a look at you and make some recommendations on exercises to do. I've had a shoulder impingement and a few different little things that a physiotherapist has helped me with, not connected to guitar, just fit exercise injuries, that kind of thing. So there we go. All right, couple more questions and then I got to roll. Just a recap, my fingerstyle guitar courses are 89% off for the next few days only. So click the link in the description, joerobinson.com/courses, to check out those fingerstyle guitar courses. There's a beginner course, an intermediate course, and an advanced course. And we've had just rave reviews on them. We've had thousands of students in there now. It's been a big, big success. I've just been blown away with the response. I think the advanced course has a 4.9 rating, which is just unheard of in Udemy. And so I'm really proud of that. And you can message me through the courses if you have any questions as you're working through the materials. The videos are quite short and they're really to the point. They're very, a lot of thought went into the way they're laid out, the order. And there's some great songs, great exercises. So if you're interested in learning fingerstyle guitar, I highly recommend checking out those courses. Omar says, Joe, your courses have lessons on recording guitar, or how do you record acoustic? Basically, for recording, my go-to mic position is a small diaphragm or a large diaphragm condenser, 6 to 8 inches from the 12th to 14th fret, so roughly where the body joins the neck. If you point a mic there, you're going to get a pretty good sound. I mostly record in mono, but sometimes I'll do an XY stereo mic, and some engineers like to do more advanced stereo techniques, space pairs and over the shoulder, that kind of thing. I don't really do any of that myself. Generally, just point a mic at the 14th fret. That's a good place to start, and put headphones in and move around till you find the sweet spot. And I use inner ear monitors, which are good if you're going to record fingerstyle with a click track or something, because the metronome won't bleed through the mics if you use in-ears. So many questions. When you sing a cover song, do you play the original chords, notes on the guitar, or do you change them to fit your voice? Well, that's a good question from Wayne. When I approach a cover song, the first step for me is to learn the song in the original key, the original arrangement, more or less, and then just kind of think about how I could, approach it in my own way. So sometimes I'll try to keep to the same key. It's pretty rare that I change a song dramatically. Usually I'm just trying to perform the song, and the song to me is the melody, the chords, the lyric, and the arrangement, how it's put together. And then I'll use my guitar to kind of provide the instrumentation, maybe come up with a unique accompanying part. The song is kind of separate from the arrangement, and so a lot of the kind of details go into creating a unique arrangement. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Blue Collar Wallet says, G'day mate, I remember watching a video years ago when you mentioned a video you watched as a kid where you learned to shred. Do you recall what that was? It was probably John Petrucci's Rock Discipline VHS tape or DVD, I forget. But that was kind of Rock Discipline. It's more of a shred approach to guitar, and I really learned so much from that video. There's a free version online of that video. A lot of the same exercises that I use and teach are from that Rock Discipline video. Hey Joe, when you improvise on the guitar, is the exact note to play due to the fact that your mind remembers the shape of the scale, or do you already know in advance the sound that note will produce? That's a very good question, and that's a question that I was asked about a week ago on my True Fire call. So when I'm improvising, I hear the notes as they're coming out, but it's not like I'm just singing and then I play what I'm singing or anything. It's kind of like my hands have gotten so used to playing the scales that I know all these different licks, I know what the notes sound like, and so I've just gotten so used to improvising, playing with backing tracks, playing with people, coming up with solos, that it's kind of a case of I hear what's going to happen before it happens, and my hands just do this. It's kind of like my hands. I used to play soccer, and I was on the soccer field, and you just kick a ball. It's like the hands, they know where the sounds are, and it becomes this kind of this one thing that you're doing. It's not like the brain's doing this thing and, you know, the melodies inside your head are one thing, and then the hand kind of is just playing those. It's just kind of a one smooth motion. I'm sorry that sounds very esoteric and not a very clear answer. But I feel like if I didn't know the scales and the positions on the fretboard, then I wouldn't be able to improvise with freedom. So I think that's the first step that a lot of people, you know, get caught up on, is just getting like the major scale, like the C major scale. Getting really comfortable with that. There's some finger sweeps there. And just practicing, you know, to songs and coming up with melodies and just getting used to where the notes are and how they sound. You know, eventually you just get to a point where you can create melodies and you hear it in your head and it just becomes one smooth motion. So there we go. A couple more questions and then I got to roll. Tommy says, thanks, Joe. Gotta go. Thanks, Tommy. I'm about to go as well. Milton says, Joe, how many hours do you spend on the guitar during the day? Well, it really depends. You know, on a like an average day where I'm at home working in the studio, you know, maybe I'm recording for 3 or 4 hours and practicing an hour or two. When I was recording my Christmas album, I was probably playing 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, maybe just recording. And then I wouldn't touch a guitar outside of that because I'd have my fingers would be a bit sore from really trying to play these intense Christmas arrangements. By the way, my Christmas album is on pre-sale. joerobinson.com/Christmas is where you can pre-order the album now with a personalized message if you'd like. So do check that out. Now's the time to do that. All right. If you could choose anyone, past or present, you wish to play with, who would it be? Says Joel Phillip. Probably Django. Yeah. I'd love to jam. I would have loved to jam with Django. So I hope you have a great rest of your evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this live stream guitar workshop. I'm going to be going live for a live from home concert this Saturday. So tune in on Saturday night, 6 p.m. Central Time, if you'd like to join us. Do check out my Christmas album. It's open for pre-order now. joerobinson.com/Christmas. And check out the fingerstyle guitar courses, joerobinson.com/courses. They're 89% off for the next 4 days only. And I highly recommend checking them out. We've had just rave reviews, and I'm really proud to help more people fall in love with this music that I love so much. So take good care, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being with us. Be well. See ya.